my God. Oh my God. It's like, okay, stop. Have you ever wondered why you attract certain type of relationships? Well, it all comes down to where the ruler of the 7th house lands. Now, this isn't synastry, just your own chart, showing you what kind of relationships vibe with you. So let's go through all the 12 houses and see what that means for your love life. And please make sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification, as most of my viewers are not subscribed to my channel. I would really appreciate that, and it'll help my channel grow to help more people. So some placements can really create calm, effortless type of partnerships, while others are going to require a little bit more effort. But if you can get the hang of working with that energy, each placement can bring its own benefits. So let's start off with the 7th house ruler in the 1st house. So the 1st house is about you, your physical appearance, your identity, and how you interact with the outside world. So this placement does hold a lot of weight. With the 7th house ruler in the 1st, it can feel like your partner was made for you. Now, for each placement, I will give you some examples of when the ruler has some easy aspects versus the ruler having some hard aspects, mainly by Mars and Saturn. So if we're dealing with easier aspects here, you can see each other as your ideal partners. The attraction can be immediate here, and it can be the classical type of, oh, we just met and instantly clicked with one another, and you both can feel like the relationship is a big part of who you both are. However, if we are dealing with harder aspects, one partner might take on the lead more than the other, or just stand out more than the other, or one partner can just go through some type of big life change, whether it's personal or just something that's happening in their life, and that can really stir some things up a bit in the relationship. Another thing we can see with hard aspects is that one partner may project relationship expectations onto the other partner, and that can really make that relationship overwhelming. So if any of the malefics like Mars or Saturn is in the mix here, you could see some power dynamics come at play, and that could really manifest itself around personal expression. Overall, having the ruler of the 7th in the 1st can deeply shape your sense of self. So some good tips here would be to keep your dependence and keep true to yourself in your relationships. If conflicts do come up, make sure you ask yourself, am I expecting my partner to complete me, or are we growing together in this relationship? Next up, we have ruler of the 7th in the 2nd house. Now, the 2nd house governs money, resources, and values. Now, when the ruler of the 7th falls in the 2nd house, there can be a strong focus on stability, security, and material concerns. And your 2nd house is also about self-worth. So your partner can play a big role, whether it's boosting your confidence or lowering that confidence. And they also could have an impact on your job or your ability to make money. Now, if the ruler is either Venus or Jupiter, we can see luck when it comes to money. But if the ruling planet is, let's say, Mars, then that could lead to either spending or having arguments over money. Now, if we're dealing with easy aspects, the relationship can bring a sense of stability as well as security. You could either support each other financially or build and grow your wealth together. The skills and contributions that each person brings to the table is going to be highly valued here. Now, if we're dealing with harder aspects here, money matters can create a sense of tension where one person might feel like they're putting in more work than the other, or the relationship might be too caught up in those type of topics of material security, and then emotions end up being put on the back burner. Anger or resentment can manifest itself if one partner doesn't value what the other person brings to the relationship. So here are some helpful tips when you have the ruler of the 7th in the 2nd house. You want to make sure that you are talking openly about financial expectations from the very beginning, and make sure that you are focusing on love and connection in the relationship rather than just getting caught up on the material things. Next up, we have ruler of the 7th house in the 3rd house. Now, the 3rd house is all about communication, intellect, short distance travels, and your siblings. So your relationship might thrive on a lot of mental stimulations, constant conversations, or even just taking a lot of trips together that are short distance from where you live. So if we're dealing with easier aspects here, The relationship can be easily stimulated by open conversations together, as well as sharing your interests. You probably have an easygoing way of expressing yourself within the relationship. You might find it fun to share your thoughts or ideas with one another, to learn together, as well as taking short trips together. Now, if we're dealing with harder aspects, miscommunication or thinking too much about emotions might be an issue, or we can see that one person probably talks more than the other, and that could lead to some annoyances. Having Mars in the third house could suggest some active conversations or some disagreements. So a great tip here would be to keep in mind how you are communicating, because talking a lot doesn't always mean that you're making a real connection. If arguments do come up, make sure that you are practicing active listening and not just trying to win the discussion. Next up, we have ruler of the 7th house in the 4th house. Now, the 4th house is one of the most significant placements for long-term commitment. Traditionally known as the house of the ancestors, it symbolizes a sense of belonging, connection, as well as heartfelt ties. So when we have the ruler of the 7th placed in the 4th house, it could feel like this relationship was meant to be, and the relationship tends to feel really personal, and there could be a strong focus on family connections. So if we're dealing with easier aspects here, there is a deep sense of connection and sense of home within the relationship. So couples in the situation often either move in together or start a family rather quickly. Of course, that also depends on other aspects or placements. In this relationship, a strong sense of familiarity is present, and also sometimes there's even a link to past lives. Now, if we're dealing with harder aspects, old childhood wounds might pop up in this relationship, or one partner might easily slip into a parental role without realizing it, which then leads to a sense of imbalance within the relationship. Also, the relationship might get a little bit too comfortable, where both partners end up tuning out everything or everyone else around them. If Saturn is the ruler and it's placed here in the 4th, it could bring a sense of responsibility or stability, but it might take a while for emotional connections to really grow. Also, be mindful if you have a night chart or a day chart, because that's going to tell you if it is Saturn, then Saturn's going to be a little bit more of a harder planet to deal with in a night chart versus if you had a day chart. Or if the ruler is Mars being placed here in the 4th, then that's where we might see some disagreements about the home life. So a great tip here would be to make sure the relationship has a good balance between emotional depth and enjoyable moments. If and when any old wounds pop up, make sure that you are addressing them together and right away, instead of falling back into old habits. Next up, we have ruler of the 7th house in the 5th house. This placement brings the energy of passion, romance, and a little bit of excitement into the relationship. In traditional astrology, the 5th house is naturally ruled by the sun, which is associated with creativity, sex, as well as children. It represents those things that bring joy. Now, if we're dealing with harder aspects, the relationship can feel like it's really lacking in emotional depth, and it's all about pleasure and not emotional commitment. Or one person may crave more fun and spontaneity, while the other person is looking and seeking for something a little bit more serious. The relationship can start off fast and steamy, but you want to make sure that you're not just running on excitement rather than long-term connection. And if the ruling planet of the 7th is a malefic planet like Mars or Saturn, you might have some difficulties juggling pleasure with responsibilities. Now, if we are dealing with easier aspects, we're going to be having a little bit more of a natural chemistry in the relationship, and also there's a sense of playfulness between the two. With easier aspects, we can see mutual interest here, so both partners are encouraging each other to be creative and artistic. They may like doing similar hobbies together or just going on spontaneous adventures with one another. And there's just an overall physical chemistry that's also combined with emotional connection that feels passionate and not overwhelming. So a good tip here would be to make sure that you are keeping the excitement while making sure that the foundation is solid. And it's really important for both partners to be on the same page about what they want in the long run. Next up, we have ruler of the 7th house and the 6th house. Now, the 6th house relates to work, routine, health, or even sickness. And unlike the 5th house of pleasure and play, the 6th house demands work. It's where we see obligations, routines, and even struggles. So when the ruler of the 7th lands here, the relationship often takes on a practical, service-oriented dynamic. The 6th house is referred to as the house of misfortune, as it is associated often with servitude and obligation. A benefic planet being placed here, like Venus or Jupiter, can really help soften that load and create a sense of healing within the relationship. So if the ruler of the 7th is a benefic like Venus or Jupiter, then that could really help soften the load and really create a more helpful dynamic within the relationship, or just healing within the relationship. While a malefic planet here like Mars or Saturn could indicate having a partner who has certain health issues or struggles with chronic health issues, or that they just have a job or they work in something that is physically demanding. If you're dealing with easier aspects here, then you and your partner can be very supportive of each other in your daily lives as well as your overall well-being. This is a we take care of each other type of relationship, with acts of service being a key love language. And there's just an overall strong sense of teamwork and reliability within the relationship. Now, if you're dealing with harder aspects, then one partner might feel like they are serving the other too much, which then causes an imbalance within the relationship. And the relationship might feel like an obligation rather than a genuine connection. With hard aspects, health problems or stress at work can become major themes in the relationship. So some good tips here would be to make sure that the relationship isn't just having this energy of practicality, and that you are really setting aside time for emotional bonding. Also, if one person is feeling like they're carrying more weight or they're feeling overwhelmed, make sure that you are having a conversation to find a better balance. Next up, we have ruler of the 7th house placed in the 7th house. Now, as far as long-term commitment goes, this is one of the best and strongest placements to have. And that is because marriage and relationships are naturally ruled by the 7th house. Having this placement can really make you feel like you and your partner were meant to meet each other. And this placement is seen as really good for marriage. Of course, the planet and the sign and other aspects are all going to play a role here, but I did want to mention that. Because if that planet is influenced by either Mars, Saturn, or even the outer planets like Neptune, Uranus, or Pluto, then we might see some challenges here or some type of power dynamics or issues with control. Also, if you have this placement, keep an eye out for Venus retrograde by transit, because that might lead you to reevaluate or just rethink your views on partnerships. Now, if we are dealing with easy aspects to the ruler here, then the relationship can feel really balanced and fair, and both partners can really see each other as equals or see each other as the one. And mutual respect for another and the desire for commitment can come naturally here, or just come easily with easy aspects. Now, if we are dealing with harder aspects or more challenging aspects, then one partner might be projecting too much onto the other, and then that ends up creating unrealistic expectations. Also, with this harder aspect, we might see dependency occur in this relationship, where the two individuals are prioritizing the relationship over everything else. So a good tip here would be to stay unique to yourself to avoid becoming over-dependent on the other partner. And if challenges do arise, just keep it simple and straightforward when you are communicating with one another. Next up, we have ruler of the 7th house in the 8th house. Now, this placement brings in some deep changes and connections, and not to go in too deep, but my partner has the ruler of his 7th in his 8th, and that manifests itself as me, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Now, the 8th house is traditionally ruled by Mars, and the 8th house governs over deep emotional connections, or just deep intimacy, shared resources, and psychological transformation. And with this, the relationship is never superficial. It is a deep dive into the emotions, a deep dive into trust, power, as well as vulnerability. Also, the partner that the person is with may be into psychology or the occult, astrology, hence me. And since meeting me, my partner has confirmed that meeting me was a massive transformation in his thought processes and his life, and a lot of deep things in general, because I brought a lot of 8th house stuff to the surface for him to face and work with. And that doesn't always have to mean something negative or bad or challenging, because we do have helpful aspects as well in our synastry. Also, side note, some ghost stuff can occur with this placement, but it just happens with us that my husband's never encountered spiritual things or ghostly things until he got with me. Now, if the ruler of the 7th is receiving easy aspects, then here we see strong emotional connection as well as a strong physical connection. And the relationship has the potential to be very healing and change things for the better. You may share finances or property, or even just sharing your spiritual practices with one another. Now, if the ruler has more challenging aspects, then this placement might lead to jealousy, power struggles, or control issues. Also, one partner might feel like the relationship is a bit overwhelming emotionally. Also, I forgot to mention that the partner might become a meaningful catalyst for deep inner transformation. And with this placement, there's a strong magnetic energy that connects the two. If Saturn is the ruler here, or if Saturn is involved by aspect, then you want to make sure that you're being patient and really building trust slowly over time within the relationship. Now, a good tip here would be to make sure that you are really building trust over time. There's no need to hurry into a serious commitment. And if any control issues come up in the relationship, make sure that you are nipping that in the bud real quick right from the beginning and keeping the conversation open and honest. Next up, we have ruler of the 7th house in the 9th house. Now, having the ruler of the 7th in the 9th means that the relationship has a focus on growth, learning, and exploring different points of view. You may be drawn to partners from different cultures, different belief system, or just different philosophies. And marriage can be seen as a journey and not just a contract. Now, the 9th house is known as the house of the divine. It has this energy of like higher purpose. So the relationship can also feel fated here. However, if the relationship lacks a shared vision, then it could lead to separation due to incompatible beliefs or goals. Now, if we're dealing with easier aspects here to the ruler, then the relationship can feel spiritually fulfilling. It could feel adventurous and expansive. Now, if you're dealing with harder aspects, then you may struggle with ideological differences or distance, or feeling like you're not on the same page when it comes to your life goals. So a good tip here would be to explore, take it easy, and really just enjoy new things together in order to keep the connection alive and well. When belief differences pop up, it's going to be best to just respect each other's point of view without trying to change each other's minds. Next up, we have ruler of the 7th house in the 10th house. So with this placement, we can see that the relationship could be very public, or it can have an effect on your job or your reputation. You may also attract partners who are powerful, ambitious, or influential in their field. Now, with easy aspects, your partner can elevate your reputation or life path, and they really support your ambitions. Now, with more challenging aspects, you may feel like your relationship is somehow scrutinized, or you feel like it's controlled, or there's some type of tie here to public pressure. Also, marriage here may be tied to legacy and responsibility. Now, a good tip here would be to be mindful on how public perception is affecting your relationship. So make sure that you are keeping personal issues private when needed. And also choose a partner who supports your life goals, but make sure you don't let your career override your emotional needs. Next up, we have ruler of the 7th in the 11th house. Now, just an example, I also have this where my ruler falls in my 11th house, and I met my husband as a friend first. And here we see relationship grow from friendships, shared networks, or shared ideas and goals. And here you need to feel like your partner is a friend first, which I can attest to because my husband felt like a friend to me first. And in some cases, this placement can be tied to alliances and communal bonds, meaning that marriage can be more about companionship and shared causes than passion. But that's just in some circumstances, because that's definitely not the situation here. Now, if we're dealing with easier aspects, then the relationship is more socially active and supportive and really based on shared goals. Now, if you're dealing with more challenging aspects, then love may feel impersonal, or like just another connection in the crowd. So a good tip here would be to make sure that you are building a solid foundation of friendship first. Your ideal partner should also feel like your best friend. So you want to make sure that you're really helping each other and just pushing each other on to pursue your goals. This energy really flourishes in partnerships where you both see eye to eye. And last, we have ruler of the 7th house and the 12th house. Having the ruler of the 7th house and the 12th house really gives relationships an energy of spirituality, or there can be a bit of mysteriousness or even a sense of sacrifice. And love can be a bit of a journey where there might be some hidden layers within the relationship. Things like subconscious worries or fears may pop up in the relationship. And I've seen also with this placement where people move cross country to be with their partner. So that's where you see a little bit of that sacrifice that could come in, where you leave your home to somewhere completely new. Now, if we are dealing with easier aspects, the relationship can feel quite spiritual. It could feel private and even healing. With more difficult aspects, we can see increased feelings of betrayal or secrecy, or just overall confusion. The 12th house is often called the house of undoings. So the marriage here could feel fated, similar to 8th and 4th house, as well as 7th, but it could also bring its own set of challenges. So some good tips here would be to make sure that you are being transparent and honest about what you need emotionally, and to not allow any type of hidden fears to mess with your connection. Make sure that you take care of yourself and heal emotionally first, because relationships in this house can feel mentally draining if there isn't a sense of balance. If you like this video, please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more videos like this, and let me know, where does the ruler of your 7th house fall and how has that played out for you? I would love to hear your experiences. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.